Welcome. You are in for a real treat today. I'm so excited to introduce you to Dr. Elsbeth Mueth and Freddy Zental Weaver. They have helped thousands of couples and singles create lasting intimacy and fulfillment in their relationships. They are beloveds, husband and wife, as well as co-founders of the Tantra Nova Institute in Chicago. And they're featured on Showtime's documentary series, Sexual Healing, and the Emmy Award-winning NBC show, Starting Over. They are the best-selling authors of Sexual Enlightenment, endorsed by the world-renowned spiritual pioneer. So we are so blessed and so excited to be here with these two. Such a power couple in this world of sacred sexuality.
Welcome to the Sex Reimagined podcast, where sex is shame-free and pleasure-forward. Let's get into the show.
Welcome.
Yay!
Thank you for having us on your platform. We're excited.
Yeah, right on. So before we started, we got a chance to visit a little bit. I know Freddy and Elsbeth, precious, wonderful human beings. I feel it's a privilege to call you both friends. And we were talking about being in a relationship, owning a business together, the difference between a horizontal business model versus a top-down business model. What's the genesis story of the two of you coming together? And then what led you into becoming leaders in the sexual arts?
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you, Leah. We have been together for 21 years. Doing this work, and almost immediately 6 months to the moment we met, we transcended what I call the romantic drama and created Tantra Nova. A lot of what we teach in our curriculum, I was introduced to initially when I was 13 years old, living in Hawaii, going through my puberty, spending a lot of time in the shower, as a lot of guys will do. Anyway, my father was a practicing psychiatrist at the time, and he took pity on me and gave me a book to read on how to integrate meditation and sex. Oh, wow. I loved it.
Wow, cool dad.
Right? And I was on my way to play basketball in college, was my dream, but I had this ambivalence, this internal dialogue that I wasn't going to be good enough, or I couldn't get to the right college, So the sexual meditation practice really allowed me to get beyond that story in the somatic expression of how that stuff showed up, to flatten it. And I went on to college, played basketball and athletic scholarship. After college, I kept, doing these practices and reading books and going to workshops and applying them in my personal relationships. I was in the software business for many years in San Francisco. And so after about 15 years in that business, it was just a job. So I was looking at how to re-inspire, reinvigorate my life, which is what I knew from this work was missing. So there was an opportunity in Chicago. I'd never lived here. So they moved me here. Company hired me, moved me here.
And he really came to meet me. He just didn't know it yet.
That's right.
Sure, of course.
Meet Elsbeth. And really, that's intuitively, I was just being guiding myself. And so I'm here and I'm single. I'm looking for Shakti, a female Tantra partner. I'm online, and Elsbeth's profile showed up and we met. And again, 6 months to the day, we started this work. Elsbeth had already begun the work. She'd gone through a certification program with Charles, which I did as well in Maui. And his work really solidified how we were going to produce and continue to grow. He was such an inspiration early in our beginnings, Charles Meuth. And so we started our work, that was 21 years ago. And thusly after that, books, tapes, television, traveled all over the world, teaching these practices of how to transform what we most deeply desire into reality. And it's working consciously with life force and sexual energy, which is unique in terms of a transformational path. So we're excited to share more of how we've been doing our work and what you guys are doing, and really excited to be here with you guys and the listeners.
He's really excited, I can tell.
Freddie, what was the name of that first book your dad gave you? Do you remember?
I don't remember, but it was one of Osho, Bhagwan Sri.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
Wow.
That's very progressive of your dad. I love that.
Yeah, he was really quite a progressive guy. He just passed away in November. We lost him, but he
Oh,
was
blessings.
He had a great life, and he died in bed. We all should be so lucky. So yeah.
I didn't get like that.
You didn't? No, not quite. You didn't get a sex and spirituality book when you.
But, as you may know already or can tell by my accent, I didn't grow up in the United States. I was born and raised in Germany. I'm one of 10 children. And so I grew up quite freely around my body when I was a kid. So, for example, in the hot summer days in Stuttgart, Germany, what we did, like, the ducklings of all the siblings, we pulled our umbrellas out and walked around the neighborhood butt naked. And that was not strange. It's just what we did. However, it totally shifted when I hit puberty. My relationship with my dad changed, and I got interested in all, things sexual, to the chagrin of my parents. But anyway, then I came in my late 20s to the United States for postgraduate work in music, and then got my doctorate in education a few years later, and then moved into management consulting. And I got really good in consulting. That was in the 90s, but I was miserable in relationship. I had this pattern of attracting unavailable men. And while that was quite exciting, most of the time I was alone. And there came a moment when I got really despaired, because I could see the trajectory. If I was not going to change that pattern, I was going to end up without lasting intimacy and love in my life before I was going to leave this planet. And I just was not willing to settle for that. So in my deep despair, I looked for what I could do to, lift the veil that was in front of my eyes in terms of what was in the way of me having that love experience, that lasting love experience. So that was the moment when I went to my first Tantra workshop, and it was with Charles and Caroline Moria. And it was so eye-opening, so heart-opening, so yoni-opening, my sexual opening, that I said, okay, I want to learn more about that, and then signed up for a certification program, never mind still being, a management consultant. But I left shortly after the consulting firm and then decided to become a Tantra teacher. That was what was so shifting for me in the tantric healing, was that I got to tap into a place that I had never been able to tap in before, and discover that I had held distrust towards men. Now, if you had known me, Willow and Leah, like 25, 24 years ago, you never would have called me distrusting bitch. I was charming, I reeled them in, I was inviting, but underneath, like in the subconscious, something was there where I didn't trust, but I didn't know about that because it was not accessible to my conscious mind. So that is when my journey started, and what it harkened back to in what came out in the sexual healing was a memory from when I was 18 years old, first love, first boyfriend. We had a most blissful relationship. And then he asked me to have intercourse. I said yes, although I was not ready. And it was freakingly painful. I had to go to the gynecologist. The bill went to my house. My dad opened it. All hell broke loose. He called me a whore. The boyfriend left a few weeks later. And there I was all by myself, no soul to turn to. And that was the moment when I decided, see, Elsbeth, men are never there for you when you really need them. And that decision trailed throughout my young adult life into my adult life, older. And it was not until, when I hit 50 that this all got opened up. So I will also want to encourage women who think, oh, I'm getting older. It's never too late. Never too late. And then, beyond that healing 6 months later, Freddy came into my life.
Ta-da!
I
Ding, ding,
love that.
ding.
That is such a remarkable story. And, one of the primary things that I work with women is learning how to trust men. And I think there's probably, you would have something great to say to this, Elsbeth, is trusting. There's an element of learning to trust yourself so that you can trust men in the world.
Absolutely, because what first went was, why didn't you speak up, Elsbeth? Why did you like this intercourse situation? Why didn't you say no? It was not available to me at that time, so there's no making wrong, but it was like, how can I trust myself if I don't take care of myself? So that had to be rebuilt. And Willow, what you're alluding to, it's really trusting starts with ourselves, perhaps even trusting life.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And it takes a digging deep into the soul and reworking belief systems and patterns that were passed on from parents. I'm so glad that you're bringing up this piece around the challenge that women have in trusting men. And it's such an unconscious, almost like a nervous system shift. If you're a woman in the world and you're walking past a group of men on the street or whatever, it's like your nervous system suddenly goes into protect mode, like this contraction mode. And I do believe it comes from the eons of oppression of the feminine from the masculine, which we are now, thank God, birthing out of.
Yeah, I also want to say something that the two energies of the testosterone energy and the estrogen energy, the testosterone energy, we call it the quick hormone, and estrogen energy, the slow hormone. And we as girls, we love it and we are afraid of it, that testosterone energy, because we get attention. And attention often is associated with feeling loved.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, I'm important. Something we long so much for. On the other hand, there is the protruding of that energy where it may not feel safe. So it's a dichotomy. Back to the trusting. How can I trust where I want to open up, but then I feel, as you called it, need to protect myself? Now, men are not going to be the answer.